Hi everyone, it's Aryan Ghasemi, the former interpreter and assistant to coach Carlos Queiroz in Team Melli. I'm currently an elite sports manager. Football has taken me across continents, into dressing rooms, in high pressure moments and some unforgettable memories. And tonight, I'm here to share some of those moments and perhaps relive some of them on Gol Bezan podcast.
با سلام و درود به همه بینندگان و شنوندگان عزیز گل بزن. برای پادکست امروز یه مصاحبه خوب داریم با آریان قاسمی، مترجم سابق تیم ملی زیر نظر کارلوس کیروش. این مصاحبه در زبان انگلیسی انجام میشه و البته با زیرنویس فارسی در ویدیو یوتیوب و امیدوارم که از این مصاحبه لذت ببرید. ممنون.
دایی یه فرصت خوب، حالا پشت مدافع خداداد عزیزی توی دروازه، گل برای ایران. خداداد عزیزی باز هم روی زمین گشت سردارات بود و توی دروازه سردارات بود. گل به نام آزمونده برای ایران. بزنه کریم انصاری، گل توی دروازه کریم انصاری، دروازه پرتغال باز شد. علی دایی صاحب توپ توی دروازه،
Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Gol Bezan. Check out our Patreon as well, where we put our analytical articles of Team Melli ahead of the World Cup. And you can also donate to us there. All our donations go towards improving our content, like our microphones, good recording equipment, and our memberships with podcast platforms that allow us to reach all of you. We really appreciate all your support ahead of this very busy time for us, for the World Cup. Remember, we do all of this in our spare time for providing the most reliable and interesting content surrounding the national team.
سلام و درود به همگی خوب باشین همگی. میخواستم امروز یه مصاحبه خوب انجام بدیم با آریان قاسمی. قبلا مترجم کارلوس کیروش بود در تیم ملی و خیلی خوشحالیم که امروز اینجا با اون هستی.
منم به همه شما دوستان عزیزم سلام عرض میکنم، به دوستای خوبم توی پادکست گل بزن، به هموطنان عزیزم درود میفرستم در هر جای دنیا که هستن و به تک تک شما عزیزانم یه خسته نباشید میگم. واقعا پادکست خیلی خوبی دارید. از سالیان سال من دنبال کردم کارتون رو، کار بسیار خوب و حرفه‌ای و خیلی با کیفیتی همیشه انجام دادید. خیلی صادقانه اخبار رو منتشر کردید. امیدوارم که کانورسیشن خیلی خوبی داشته باشیم امروز.
ممنونم از شما. We're going to do the rest of the podcast in English for all the listeners, so I appreciate everyone tuning in. Of course, we will have Farsi subtitles. For this episode, we've also got our two hosts, Samson Tamijani and Sina Sadrzadeh. How are you doing, guys?
Very well, thank you. I'm very excited to be on this podcast with Aryan, someone that has been part of the Team Melli setup, was part of the Team Melli setup for a long time, and yeah, I'm very excited to deep dive into everything.
Yeah, for me, speaking of someone in his late 20s, you know, I don't mean to age Aryan here, but we kind of grew up with the influence of seeing Carlos Queiroz in front of Team Melli, and Aryan was a part of that side by side with him. So I kind of grew up seeing through his lens as well, especially as someone in the diaspora, the English-speaking diaspora. So this is definitely a treat.
Aryan, I really want to kick off the interview with a question that has been on my mind for a long time, is that you were part of the Team Melli setup for so many years, but you were doing a lot of interpreting, of course, but you didn't do many interviews yourself specifically. I guess, why is it the right time now for you to do an interview? Why do you feel like that now is the sort of right time?
Let me also say another introduction, a quick hello in English to all the listeners of Gol Bezan. And once again, thank you gentlemen. I've known you guys for a long time. Back in the days, I used to call you boys. Now you're all fantastic gentlemen. So it is a privilege to be here and answer to your question. You're right. I never actually used to do many interviews. I think throughout my career, I've done less than 5 solo interviews of my own, but I do feel it is the right moment for a lot of the Iranians outside Iran to follow the football of the national team and just to follow really what's happening a little closer. And for me, as I said, I was privileged enough to be part of the national team for so many years. It's a good moment to share some of those moments, to share some of those memories, and to share it with all these wonderful football fans.
Amazing. You were very much woven into the fabric of the national team for many years. And a question I really want to ask is, how did that all start for you when it came to the interpretations? So where did your journey begin?
I've never considered myself. I never actually used to be an interpreter before, and after I left Team Melli, I've never done interpreting after. I was always a huge football fan. Growing up in Australia, we just migrated around that time of the famous Iran-Australia game. So that really shaped my love, my passion. I was, how old was I in 97? I was 12 years old in 97. And my love for Team Melli really started in those periods of the famous Iran-Australia match in a Melbourne cricket ground in MCG. Then after that, obviously, I finished my schoolings in Australia. I went to university. You know, the Persian moms and dads, they all want us to be either engineers or doctors. I actually ended up getting into economics and finance. So I ended up getting a degree and a master's degree in Australia. But on the side, I was always involved in football. I was doing refereeing in Australia. So I did refereeing in Australia for just a little bit more than 8 years. And my relationship with football was ongoing. I had some mutual connections with Coach Queiroz, and when he moved to Iran, I was actually in Australia back then. After a couple of months, they reached out to me from Coach Queiroz and his staff. They reached out, and I repeat this again, I was privileged enough at a very, very young age to be able to get into national team and to get into that level of football, very elite level in national team. You got to enter in a niche, sort of niche window, I would say. And for me, it was interpreting. I was very good in Farsi, also in English, and I do understand multiple languages as well. I can pick up Spanish, Portuguese, and other languages, which helped, but the main channel of communication was English and obviously Farsi, and it all started from there.
Why do you feel like they picked you and you were able to stay in the national team setup for so long? There's a lot of people that can speak both languages, and you were really trusted by Carlos Queiroz for a long time. So why do you feel like that relationship was so fruitful over such a long period?
I'm going to answer your second part of question first on how I lasted so long, and I'm going to try to stay as humble and as sort of simple as possible. I hate giving myself compliments and talking good about myself, but bottom line was Coach Queiroz, he always emphasized on few very important values, and whoever wanted to stick around him had to essentially follow those values and had to be committed to those values. And those values were loyalty, respect, commitment to the team, and putting obviously Team Melli before anything else. And I do believe, and I hope I was able to follow those values and to last throughout his 9 years, close to 10 years in Iran. I was lucky enough to be able to last the whole time.
And what did you learn from him in that period? I saw you did one very short interview where you sort of said he was one of your heroes in football, even now. So yeah, it would be good to hear what did you learn from him?
Oh my God! I mean, I've journaled all my 10 years in Team Melli and in international football. So that's for a proper book to come out for me to go into all details. But if I want to give you an overview of what I learned from him, I'm going to divide it into 2 chapters: football and life. And I think it's a little bit more relevant in this type of interviews, which it's short. We don't want to bore your audience with a lot of technical and detailed football conversations, which we all love. I can talk about football and the formations and the plans for hours, but essentially how Coach Queiroz shaped me and a lot of people around him was to show us a lot of different values about life, how to be resilient, how to keep moving forward, how to trust the purpose, how to always make sure you stick to the right values and make sure you protect the foundations. And the foundation is the family. The foundation was Team Melli for us, and it still is. And in a very simple word, those were the values that I think I learned from him.
You mentioned you already had connections with Queiroz. Do you mind telling us what those connections were? I mean, you're in Australia.
I know a lot of football. I know a lot of, it wasn't just Australia. It was a lot of my friends in England. And he worked in, obviously, we all know he worked in Manchester. And I had a lot of friends from the UK. And I had a lot of friends in Europe and in Australia. And, you know, you really got to be extremely, and I always say this, lucky for all these friends and your networks to happen and to be at the right time for you to for that big projects to happen and the big windows and the big doors to open. And that was the case for me. I know one of his assistants very closely, Mick McDermott, also Dan Gaspar. I knew himself through a couple of friends from the UK, from Manchester and from London, and everything happened. And originally it was supposed to be a very short, it was just the qualifications of 2014. So I only went back to Iran because we wasn't sure if we're going to qualify or not. And a project that could potentially have been 9 months, it was extended to 9 years. We beat South Korea in that famous game in Busan, and with that wonderful goal of my dear friend Reza Gucci, and we qualified to the World Cup, which was really, really something very special for all of us and for me too.
Y es muy impresionante que habla español también, but that's for another discussion in Spanish. But speaking on that, Aryan, I'm curious how much of the squad when you arrived spoke English or language that Queiroz indeed spoke when he first arrived, because I'm curious if more players learned English and communicated with him, perhaps as more of them started playing in Europe.
So the squad at the very beginning was a very good aging squad. We had big names like Ali Karimi, Mehdi Ramati, Hadi Aghili. We had Jawad Nekunam, all the big names. But in terms of them playing in Europe, when I arrived, which was a few months after Coach Queiroz had already started in Iran, we only had 2 players in Europe. One playing regularly, which was Jawad Nekunam, who was playing for Osasuna, and the other player, Masoud, who was injured at the time. He had an ACL injury, if I'm not mistaken. So he had this operation, if memory serves me right, in Germany, and he was out for almost 9 months. So we only had 2 players in Europe. And majority of players actually did not speak English back then. But as the time went by, as we moved forward with the national team, obviously Coach Queiroz had this very open-minded global vision. So he reached out to a lot of other players in different countries, a lot of players with Iranian roots. Unfortunately, the Iranian media, they call them multinationals, but a lot of them were actually full Persians, full moms and dads of Iranian backgrounds, but they were born in different countries like Ashkan Dejagir. Another example was like Reza Gucci, and a lot of other players. As the time went by, a lot of them were more familiarized with English and other languages because they ended up being transferred to different European leagues. And yeah.
Aryan, a question for you. In terms of, obviously, You mentioned the first portion of your time in Team Melli was very much interpreting for Carlos Queiroz, Farsi to English, press conferences, training sessions, etc. Obviously, as time went on, your role changed with Team Melli. You had a different role, as Samson said, more players spoke English, so you didn't have to do as much interpreting day to day. So, average, what was your work behind the scenes with Carlos Queiroz like as the years went on?
I have to start this topic again, referring back to Coach Queiroz's mentality. He really wasn't just a football coach. He was a type of a manager, a type of leader who actually created a football ecosystem. And in any new ecosystem, as we all know, new roles, new responsibilities evolve as you move forward. And that was actually my case as well. Yes, when I got into the national team, I was about 24, 25 years old. For the first couple of years, I was interpreting. But as I moved on, with Coach Queiroz's leadership, with his help, and a lot of other support from friends, I started actually taking on more roles. I actually got my coaching licenses, AFC. I got a coaching license, B coaching license of UEFA as well. But that was from the coaching point of view because I had to understand coaching better because it was one-on-one in team talks on the side of a pitch, individual players. I had to really understand football even better than I used to understand from that elite coaching level. But not only that, he started creating a proper department of national team. Because Iran being a developing footballing nation, there really wasn't a proper department, a proper structure in place in terms of how things needs to be done. So he created, which was long, lengthy, and extremely difficult, I must admit, boys. We started creating this national team department, a proper professional department dedicated fully to the national team players. Underneath that national team department was the medical department, players' well-being, operations, media, organizations, team management, different sub-departments of that. And I was heavily involved in all that, in operations, a lot of the times in media. I was the main liaison between Queiroz and a lot of members of the press. And so throughout my journey of 9 years, I actually covered a lot of different areas in different departments. But if I want to simplify it, first couple of years interpreting, then I got into more operations and team, that's the national team department.
So Aryan, sorry to cut you off, Arya. You're saying all that stuff, all that structure, around the national team in terms of media, player well-being, all of this stuff that, quite honestly, a lot of other federations and national teams have, that didn't exist at the time that you arrived.
No, everybody knows this. There's nothing new to the ones who are working in Iran. Before Carlos created this national team department, there was nothing in place. He started by creating the national team department. Then, obviously, him being involved in top level footballs in different countries and top level clubs, Man United and Real Madrid, he realized that the national team needs a dedicated building for the players to come, a gym, a training facility, all that. So we started building this facility called PEC, Performance Elite Center, in Tehran, right next to Azadi Stadium. And the plan was for us to have PEC, the Performance Elite Center, right next to the training pitches. The good thing was PEC got completed, so we ended up using PEC for around 3 to 4 years before the Russia World Cup a little bit and before the Asian Cup of 2019. The sad part was the dedicated pitches to the national team took 8 years, and they were only ready a week before we finished their assignments. So we only trained on those pitches a few times, to be honest. We never really trained on those pitches, but Carlos fought really hard for those pitches, for those facilities. It was very challenging, but they still exist. He didn't take him with him. He always used to say, I'm not going to put it in my pocket and leave, or nobody's going to put it in a bag and leave. So they're all still back in Tehran. And that's why the legacy is still very much alive in Tehran.
Aryan, obviously, we're coming on to, your career when you started out. For us as Iranian football fans, over the years, we've had lots of coaches come and go, foreign coaches, Branko Ivankovic, etc., who coached in English, or they coached in Croatian, whatever it may be, and they had interpreters. However, from the outside looking in, and a lot of the Team Melli fans will agree with me that your level of interpreting and the way you conveyed the character of a Carlos Queiroz, which is a really, really big character in football, was really top notch, and is without a doubt we're probably not going to have that level of interpreting for a long time in Iranian football.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
How did you manage to convey again his character and communicate it in a way where it was authentic?
To be very honest, it was all due to the culture that existed in the national team. It was just an amazing culture. It wasn't just a team, it was family. So what Carlos created was, and this is what he's done in every single country that he's gone to. He's done this in Oman. He's doing this in Oman now. He's done this in Egypt. He did this for 9 years in Iran. He created this family culture. But first thing, he always took the bullets. He always tried to protect everybody so everyone else can focus. The players can focus on their football. The staff can focus on their responsibilities. He was always the front man taking all the hit. And because of that, me sort of having both, because we migrated to Australia when I was about 12, 13 years old. But so I grew up, I did my primary school in Iran. I had the Iranian, the Persian culture, the upbringings, but also I knew the West very well. I was educated here. I went to school and university here. I really saw that the whole ecosystem as a very functional system, and it worked extremely well, all because of the right culture, the right values that were in place. And not only me, all the players, everybody was just, when it was the national team, everybody just wanted to run to the team. All the players, it was just an enjoyable, very beautiful family environment, I must say. And I was part of it. So it was for me, it was very, very special.
Now, obviously, let's go on to some of the more footballing aspects of it. The qualification for the 2014 World Cup was very difficult. It came down to the wire against South Korea. Obviously, as you mentioned, the goal which Onajaz scored. When you look back at that period, from a coaching staff point of view as well, how difficult was it for you guys?
It was extremely difficult because it was a wonderful generation, but it was an aging generation with all those names that we mentioned. And for a coach to implement his own mentality, his own mindset, to leave his footprint in any team, it takes time. We all know it takes time. In junior level, it takes time. In the top level, it takes even longer. So you really need to dedicate a number of years to be able to form what you want, how you want things to work. The 2014, it was short. It went, we hit a couple of storms. We had a couple of not so good performances against Uzbekistan, for instance, in Tehran. And after that, we were left with 3 games, as we all remember, that Team Melli had to win those games in order to qualify. And out of those 3 games, 2 were away. And the timings was so difficult because the Tehran game 3 days after was 3 days after was Qatar, and then South Korea. The timing was very difficult, but we managed to do it. I do still believe the South Korea game was one of the best memories of my whole football in Korea. It was just something very, very special. In a stadium full of South Korean fans, with a team that a lot of the players, including the goalkeeper, the great Rahman Ahmadi, he wasn't very experienced. He didn't have that many caps in national team, but the whole team just fought very hard. They played an amazing football. Something I'll never forget.
Move on to the next question, Sina, regarding Carlos Queiroz.
Yeah. So I want to ask around what work you did with Carlos Queiroz to prepare for each World Cup, because you're obviously part of the setup for more than one. So it'd be interesting to hear sort of how the preparations changed or how they were sort of different for each one.
If I may, I'm gonna start with this amazing quote that I love about success, and it says, "Success belongs to those who can stay disciplined when nobody's actually watching." And this was exactly the real strength of the national team before 2014 World Cup, and also before the 2018 World Cup, and in all the tournaments that we participated, which altogether was 5 major tournaments, 3 World Cups, 2 Asian Cups. And how we prepared for each tournament was very structured, very clear. Carlos used to sit with all the staff. Under his leadership, under his guidance, we used to come up with a master plan called Road to Brazil. Another one was Road to Russia. I'm actually happy to share these with you guys as well, for your wonderful listeners to see all this. And this was done at the very first stage of the qualifications. So in 2012, 2 years away from the 2014 Brazil World Cup, he actually had a plan in place. And that plan included the short term, the medium term, and the long term plans. What sort of camps he expected for the team to get ready, to be prepared in short terms, in medium terms, and long terms. And that same thing happened again in Russia, Road to Russia. And once again, because this type of structures was nothing that the whole football culture of Iran was used to, at the very beginning, there was a lot of issues, like the league organization. If you guys recall, there was a lot of media outbursts as well from the league, from the clubs, on why does the national team need these 2 weeks breaks for preparation camps? But Carlos fought every single time. He tried to implement as many training camps as possible, either at home, near Iran, or somewhere very far away in South Africa or in Portugal or in Hungary or in Sweden, wherever he had the possibility. We tried to use anything that we had to make sure we get those camps, to prepare the players, to make sure they start getting familiarized with international football. Because one thing that the Asian players lacked back then, I do still believe they still lack today, is the international encounter. We're not talking about the Japanese players or the South Koreans. We're talking about the rest of the Asian players, footballers, athletes. They need to start getting familiarized with top-level international football. And that top-level international football is different to what they play in Asia. It's just another league. I mean, Saudi Arabia, last couple of years, they've obviously moved a few things, and it's a different ball game now to what it was 10 years ago when I used to work in the Middle East. So that was the whole mindset, to make sure the players get as much training as possible with the national team in the right environment.
Aryan, that leads me into my question. How did you and Queiroz navigate any disagreements with members of the federation or the decision makers? What stood out to you about these times that, in the media at least, would generate a little bit of controversy?
It wasn't easy. It definitely wasn't easy. At the times, it was extremely challenging for me. I was much younger as well. I'm going to tell you a funny story, actually. In one meeting, and I think that the actual news is still on Google. If you Google it, you see. In one meeting, there was so much pressure, and the meeting went on for so long. And there was so much. Don't ask me who was in that meeting and everything, because that should remain confidential, I think. But the meeting went so long and so much pressure, I actually fainted. So they actually had to call an ambulance. So they called an ambulance in the middle of meeting. I fainted, and they took me to the hospital. And actually, Carlos paused the meeting. He stopped it right there. He actually came to hospital right after. But I was fine after. But it was just so many hours in high pressure meeting. So it definitely wasn't easy. But how he navigated was, once again, and how we navigated was, always try to stick to the plan. And we always had plan. If our plan A was to play with a European nation in the FIFA day break in October, let's say, if that wasn't possible, we always had a plan B. If plan B wasn't possible, plan C. One thing we never did was just to close our eyes and say, oh, you know what? Wasn't possible. That just was not the case. Was it challenging? Absolutely. But did we manage to pull it off 90% of times? We did. We actually did. We played a lot of amazing games. Boys, I have to remind your audience as well. Now I think about it, I still get goosebumps. We played Chile. We played Sweden in Stockholm with Zlatan. We played against Hungary. We played against so many amazing training games and preparation games and friendlies against big names. Uruguay, Tunisia, Senegal just before the last World Cup, Algeria. I mean, the list goes on. And trust me, Iran was still facing a lot of complexities back then as well. It wasn't all calm and relaxed. And no, it wasn't the case. It was very challenging to prepare those games, to manage to pull those friendlies off. It was very challenging. And there was also always these conversations in the media. Why are we not playing against Argentina? Because Argentina, there's a fee to play against big names. There's a fee to play in bigger stadiums. Do you have the funds, or do your sponsors come up with the funds? And unfortunately, none of those structures really existed back then. But whether they exist today or not, it's another topic. But it was definitely challenging for us.
Talking about the challenges, because you said, various challenges, and you're, as an interpreter, you're on the firing line. you're in between those conversations, and you actually put your health on the line, fainting in a meeting, which is crazy. I think, like, taking a step back, why do those challenges exist in the first place in your point of view? Is it what you just said around money, or is it something else?
Those challenges exist purely because in a developing environment, whether it's a developing football nation, a developing economy, or a developing social system paradigm, when a country is moving towards any directions, progressing towards any direction, when a team or a federation is trying to get structured, you always face challenges. It's always been the same in different nations and different federations. Australia today, because I live in Australia, some of the best athletes, some of the best teams in terms of Olympic teams are in Australia. I've been lucky enough to work with the Australian Olympic Committee as well. Did they have the same structures 30 years ago? Did they have the same structures 20 years ago? No, they didn't. But the difference is they start planning ahead. They start planning for the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years. But Iran, what Iran lacked at the time was mainly the planning ahead part. There wasn't much planning, to be very honest, which was frustrating. Was very, very frustrating, especially coming from people who have this extremely professional European mindset, all our coaching staff and our head coach. It was extremely challenging. But once again, because the mindset was, we're not going to quit, we're not going to say no, we always came up with a solution. So the solution mindset was always there. I hope I've answered your question.
Yes, Sina, you think you're going to ask about the 2018 World Cup. I'll ask you the question. Just regarding the 2018 World Cup, I think, obviously that was a World Cup where, it was difficult as it was for the 2014 World Cup, but things got a little bit easier. Iran was a much stronger team, and the World Cup itself, again, Iran was in the group of death. Looking back at that World Cup period, do you feel like there was a lack of investment in the preparation, as you mentioned just now, especially because we were going to play against two of the best nations in the world, Portugal and Spain, and Morocco, who are a very, very good nation. I think they were actually African
champion.
Yes, African champions. Do you feel there was a lack of investment, or was it it was just enough, or how do you see that?
Do I believe it was lack of investment? Look, it could have been, obviously could have been better, to be very frank and honest with you. But I think everybody really, at the time, they tried to do the best, purely because coach put a lot of pressure as well, I must say this. But there was also other controversies surrounding Team Melli. We sometimes tend to forget we were facing issues about simple football boots. I'm not sure if you gentlemen remember with the whole Nike story, how they, because of sanctions and everything, there was a lot of dramas in the media and with all the other members of the press about how are Iranian players, are they going to wear Nike or are they going to not wear? Is Nike going to supply to Iran? So we really faced some very basic issues. But once again, the real challenges we were facing, it was because of the whole team was still evolving. Specifically talking about 2018 Russia, I still believe if we were this much luckier, we could have done it. Look, we really deserved it. And I'm not just saying this, I do believe if there's a proper poll from all Iranian football fans, it was the best performance of Team Melli in any World Cup. We played a magnificent game again against Morocco. We played absolutely great against Spain because of as part of the staff. We were given all these footages from cameras, confidential, obviously. At the time, still, it's never been released by those cameras at the top, like the drones filming. The goal we actually scored against Spain, and I still have it. I know VAR called it off, but there was nothing wrong with the goal. That goal was a proper goal. There was nothing wrong with it. So potentially the result should have been 1-1 against Spain. And that 1-1 would have actually put us through to the next round. And that unforgettable game against Portugal. I mean, what a game. What a save by goalkeeper Ali Reza, and the whole team they fought with their heart. Just unforgettable game.
Yeah,
With a little bit more luck, we could have done it.
I'm curious on this because of your experience as a referee. And by the way, I'm still wearing my referee undershirt
I
right
saw
now.
that.
I referee as well.
Fantastic.
But it's funny you mentioned the referee. I mean, you mentioned the Spain game and Portugal game. Ronaldo could have easily have gotten a red card for that elbow on Ibrahimi.
The elbow.
But looking back at that, as well as the 2015-2019 Asian Cups, losing to Iraq on penalties, the Vahid Amiri red card, controversy with referee Ben Williams, a fellow Aussie, and
in Canberra, yeah.
And that loss to Japan. How unlucky do you think Iran was, and especially how do you navigate those difficulties sometimes with referees?
I'll come to the referee question a little bit later, but how you navigate also is luck plays a part in football, in any game. You got to be lucky, and we were lucky sometimes as well. But if I actually want to assess how lucky or unlucky we were, when we needed luck, in most cases, in some sensitive moments, we never really were lucky. Because you just came up with a few examples. The game against Iraq in Canberra in 2015 Asian Cup. I mean, God, what an unlucky game. The refereeing was Benjamin Williams, just disastrous, to be honest. A lot of other examples as well, but I'm going to say a little. I'm going to give you, and I'm going to share my view as well. Luck plays part in this, but also players' depth of maturity plays a part as well. If in 2018 we had more starting players in our first team starting in European leagues, we probably and most likely we would have qualified to the second round, which should have qualified to the second round. If our striker, that last second miss, if that ball would have gone in against Portugal, or a lot of other opportunities that we had against Spain, we should have actually qualified to the second round. But once again, it takes time for players to get mature enough for them to be seen by the European scouts, for them to be signed by the European clubs, for them to be given chance to play. So it all takes time. I mean, Mehdi Taremi ended up being transferred to Europe at a very late age. Just imagine if that would have taken place 5 years earlier.
He was still playing in Qatar, wasn't he, during the 2018 World Cup?
He
wasn't playing. Yeah,
he was.
So you're right.
And I'll share with you guys, without going into too much details, Coach Queiroz always emphasized on the fact that boys, in private conversations, that boys, you need to play in Europe. You can always come back to all these leagues around Iran. These leagues will never finish. They're still there, but you need to play in Europe. That European pressure for you to really feel those intensity. And we also, what happened to Mehdi when he moved to Rio Ave, and after that he went to Porto, and his whole career really flourished. Could he have performed more accurately, more mature in 2018 if he was playing in a top European club? You guys tell me.
Yeah,
there's a video going around Twitter at the moment with Taremi he scored a chance with Olympiacos, and that chance is very similar to the chance that he got against Portugal. Like, you guys have definitely seen it. It's been doing the rounds on Twitter recently.
I think with Taremi, there's always been a question mark in his career. I think he should have went to Europe earlier. He had a chance to go to Turkey, I think, early on in his career, didn't take it for many reasons. So let's go fast forward a little bit to more recent times. Obviously, you were brought back in.
I'm just going to, before we move on, I'll just say one sentence. I do remember this. We always used to emphasize on this. Greatness, it's not talent. It's your ability to perform under a lot of pressure. And what the Asian players, not just Iranians, what the Asian players lack is their ability to perform under pressure. And that only changes if you play in top level European football.
Yeah, you're brought back in as I mentioned for the 2022 World Cup. Kind of a crazy situation with Skocic getting the sack and you guys getting the job very last minute. How did you immediately get brought back in by Queiroz? Or was it like a case of when Queiroz comes back, you come back straight away?
No, immediately. We actually flew in back to Iran just almost together. So the moment he accepted the contract, he actually offered me the job as well. But 2022 was very different because there was a lot of other staff were not there, and he told me, he said, "Look, son, this time around you got to use all your experiences," because we didn't have a lot of other assistants or a lot of other members of our staff. So he said, "This is the time you really got to come and help me. Can I count on you?" And I couldn't say no, and of course and for my country as well, for the love I've had to Team Melli, as always. So we all went back, and it was just 3 months before the World Cup, if I'm not mistaken. Just over 90 days.
Yeah,
just over 90 days.
Yeah,
and still managed to arrange a couple of games against Uruguay, full squad of the Uruguay team. Fantastic friendly, one of the best friendlies Iran's ever played.
100%.
But Senegal game in it. You were there. Senegal game in in Austria with full squad again. Mane was there, and all the other stars and full squad. We still managed to pull that off. We had 2 friendlies in Tehran and one before Qatar as well. One with the South American team. I think it was Bolivia in Tehran. But yeah, things just. I'm gonna really pinpoint this because it was a very, for me, it was a very bitter World Cup, I have to say. What was happening inside Iran, it obviously broke all our hearts. But at the same time, because we were so committed, because you need to understand, for us, it was we had to, we were brought in 3 months before a World Cup to perform the job that was to make sure for coach to lead the team and for us to support the team to make sure we can achieve the results we want. But it was a really, really a bitter experience.
Yeah, you mentioned obviously you were there for a short stint, when you came in 90 days. Now, obviously, you brought up a great point about the Uruguay and Senegal friendly matches. That was in Austria, in Vienna. Me and Sina were there as media. I just want to, for the listeners who may not know about the experience we had, I'll quickly just talk to you. I want you to just give me your response to this. It's nothing crazy, but it's, for me, a very important moment in our time as from Gol Bezan's perspective. Is we went to Austria with my dad. We arrived on the day before the match against Uruguay. When we landed, we got an email from the stadium staff saying that our media passes have been cancelled. Obviously, there was the Mahsa Amini protests happening in Austria as well. So I think they were afraid of people protesting the stadium, so they actually cancelled all fans' tickets as well. So no media access, no fan access to the games. But we had been given media access a few days prior, so we thought we would be okay for it. Me and my dad ended up driving straight to the hotel that you guys were staying in. As we landed, like an hour later, we went to the hotel. We were greeted by Naeem Ahmadi, who's actually in Australia now, and if I'm not mistaken, the photographer for Team Melli.
He's in Melbourne, yeah.
Yeah, and also Nabi, who's the current and was at the time the vice president of the federation. Not to go into too much specifics, but we didn't have too many great conversations with Nabi at the time. Me and myself, I was very heated in that moment. for obvious reasons. At that moment that we were getting into a little bit of an argument, if you want to put it that way, Carlos Queiroz walked through the lobby and mentioned that we will do an interview pitch side, which we ended up doing. You then came while we're doing this little press conference with all the media. You walked over, said hello, and then I think it was Nabi as well. When the conference ended, he asked all the media to leave. However, very graciously from yourself, and my dad will also keep going on about it to this day, you asked us to stay behind. We asked you, can we get a picture with Queiroz? You said yes. So we ended up getting a picture with him, spoke to him for a little bit. You let us kind of stay behind a little bit longer, which was very, very gracious of you. But I think the next day our passes got accepted and we were allowed in the stadium. That whole camp from because we were there for the whole week, we were there for the Senegal game as well. Lots of media coverage. And lots of protests even during the stadium, rightly so to some extent as well. What do you make of that whole experience? Because it was very, very, it was just very, it was a week of just a lot of chaos.
I think chaos is the right word. It indeed, it was very chaotic. The situation inside Iran and also outside Iran was very, very, as I mentioned before, for everyone it was bitter. And I've always tried to help everybody, but very discreetly. Having been in 3 different World Cups, I've seen the love, the real passion that the Persian diaspora, the Iranian boys and girls who were born in the States or different nations in Europe or Australia or around Iran, that they've actually never been to Iran, but they got so much love and passion for Team Melli and for their country, for their nation. I've always witnessed that, as I said, in 3 different World Cups. And for me, that's something I always keep in my heart. And a lot of young lads like yourself, they try to reach out, they try to spend, they spend significant amount of money out of pocket to fly to different destinations for different games. And behind the scenes, what I always used to do, as much as I could, try to be nice to them, try to open the doors, the ones that I could, to them, for them to spend a few seconds on the side of a training pitch with their favorite star, or to take a photo, take an autograph. So this was just something that I did very naturally, and I do believe it was actually my responsibility to do as well, because I grew up outside Iran. I had the same passion, but everything else was out of our control. And once again, if things unfolded differently, that result against England, I'm just going to say one thing to you boys. I've never said this publicly before. I remember I was on the bench of the national team for just over 100 games, friendlies and different World Cups and Asian games and everything, around 100, just over 100 national team games with Iran. I remember every single game vividly, the ones that we played, very clearly, who scored, what happened. I remember the throw-ins, I remember the little fights on the other corner, I remember everything. The game of England, I do not remember that game. I don't even know what happened. I don't think any of us know what happened. Not the staff, not the coach, not the players. It was just the whole stadium. It was a very, very sad moment for the whole country. And also, I have to say this because I was part of that team. Everyone in the team was very, very much also very upset about the whole situation, and we ended up obviously encountering that very bad result. But how we came back after that game, the game against Wales, I think those boys, they deserve big applauses, each one of them. I think we played one of the best games, beating a European nation. First time ever Iran actually managed to get 3 points in a World Cup against a European opponent. One of those really, really amazing games. The Iran-Wales was, Gareth Bale was playing in that game. And after the game, he came near our locker room and he wanted to talk to Carlos for a few seconds. And he said, "Oh, what a game. And these boys, they've played good football." So he congratulated the coach and the players. It was really something special. And everybody in FIFA, the members of the press, everyone really felt for that team because in Farsi we have these words saying that I'm going to repeat the exact same word. We say that the person or the team was mazlum. In those group of players in that tournament, we were really the things didn't happen as good as they could, but it's still another World Cup and life goes on.
Aryan, I have to ask as well. So I went to
Sina, sorry, I forgot you off. Samson, how are you for time just now? Are you okay? Yeah, okay, go on, Sina.
Aryan, I have to ask because I was at the Austria camp, so I watched, Uruguay, Senegal. It was during that sort of period. I also went to the 2022 World Cup also, so I saw that whole period, firsthand. How did that pressure? Because when all the protests happened in Iran, outside of Iran, the players received so much pressure. The staff received so much pressure. There was a lot of pressure on the national team as a whole, individual players as well. How do you feel like that impacted the camp? I know you alluded to it slightly there, but how did you feel like it impacted the camp?
If I say it didn't impact the camp, I'll be lying. It obviously impacted the whole team. Every single member of that team um, uh, couldn't really focus. We couldn't concentrate on our main job, which was to prepare the team. But one thing everybody needs to understand: when you work in the national team, it is very easy. And I learned this working with Coach Queiroz. He always used to tell me this. It's very easy over one night for a man to be a hero of a country, or it's very easy for a country to be against that man. And what happened in those periods was the whole country was against the national team for all the reasons that we know. And yeah, look, one thing for sure, it was out of our control. Did we plan for all those events to unfold like that? Obviously not. But nobody could really focus on their duty, which was just to play football, to be prepared for the World Cup, because it is the biggest sporting tournament and it only gets played every 4 years. So that clearly didn't happen.
I imagine that's something Queiroz had never dealt with before in his career.
No, not in no. As far as I know, and no, we didn't.
Aryan,
No, I don't think any of us did.
We spoke about this off air a little bit. Just want to kind of make sure we kind of cover this as well, because
Sure.
a lot of the fans or just Iranian people in general, they did turn on Queiroz as well in that moment. A lot of the people didn't believe he necessarily did himself any favors in terms of not really, maybe you can argue, supporting the people of Iran or the country of Iran, if you know what I mean. How do you feel like, obviously it's a very difficult situation for him because he's not even Iranian, he's Portuguese, first of all. How do you feel like he navigated that process, being what it was?
I'm going to actually I'm going to answer this question referring back to the previous World Cup, 2018. What a lot of people forget is we played a very important game against Portugal. Carlos, being Portuguese, not only Portuguese, he was actually the head coach of the national team.
National team, yeah.
2010 World Cup. With more or less a lot of the players that were there still played, main one being Cristiano. He was there as well. Was it easy for him to show so much passion, so much love for Iran against his own homeland? I mean, just put yourself in his shoes. You think the Portuguese media really liked how he tried to protect the Iranian players, how he tried to publicly always put himself first in all those press conferences, in every single match? Definitely wasn't easy for him. It was an extremely difficult game, extremely difficult period of time. But then go back 4 years after again. What did I tell you? I said it's very easy for a man, when he's the head coach of the national team, for the whole country to be against him, especially for a coach with Coach Queiroz mentality. He always had the protection of players first. He always protected his players publicly. He always took the bullets so the players could actually focus on football. And he always tried to absorb all the pressure. When you always try to absorb pressure, it's a simple rule of life. It's normal. People throw stones and people react in different ways, especially in those social and political situations. But once again, he tried his best, and he did not let all the pressure to be focused on the players. The 3 press conferences we had in the 2022 Qatar World Cup, this is once again according to FIFA stats as well, it was some of the biggest press conferences. The game against the US, we had more than 600 members of the press. I mean, it was. I turned around behind me, and I've been to a lot of press conferences. Never seen anything like this. The pressure was just tremendous. But once again, he tried to protect the players, and he paid the price for it as well. And I understand where you come from. But one thing for sure, and I'm not just saying this because I work with this wonderful gentleman. His legacy, our legacy, is still there. The players, the squad, the matrix we put in place, the young talents he found, he discovered, he went to the training sessions, he tried to convince the coach, player X should not really play in the midfield. He's a great central defender. We don't have many central defenders in Iran. Iran lacks central defenders.
Yep.
Carlos had to convince.
He brought in Majid Hosseini in the
Majid
2018 World
Cup. Wonderful player, amazing defender. So previous World Cup, there was the same scenario. 2022 was the same scenario. 2022, imagine 90 days before the World Cup, we're going, and as I said, he always had these plans. We couldn't get all the players. It was just really short, and a lot of players were playing in European leagues. So we ended up starting the camps in Tehran, and he said, you know what? I'm going to train with the young ones. I'm like, and we had no other Iranian assistants or anything, because Mark Carr, my great friend, Mark Carr, he only joined us a couple of days before he was in the US at the time, before the World Cup. So I was the only Iranian assistant. I was his assistant. I was his interpreter. I was those days before the World Cup of 2022. He said, yeah, young players. I'm like, which young players? He's like, young league players. We ended up calling, I still have the list, around 16 players, 15, 16 players of the league. Oh, 17, 18, 19, 20. 4 or 5 of them are now the most expensive players in Iran. Those agents that they followed those camps, they made big money because they signed them after with big contracts. Well, it's easy mathematics. If Carlos Queiroz calls a player, he must have some good talents. They're now, some of them actually playing the national team as well, which I'm very happy and very pleased to see, because these talents are the guys that they need to build the future of Iran, future of Iranian football. We need young players, because sooner or later, guys, Sardar cannot play for another 20 years. Mehdi Taremi, he cannot play for another 20 years. You know, every footballer, there's an age limit. So we need to have a younger squad coming in, and that's what we always try to do.
Just I want to also get your reaction on the World Cup draw that's just happened as well. We are in Group G with New Zealand, Belgium, and Egypt. Um, can you quickly just give us your reaction on this?
Um, I've been following the press in the last couple of days as well, and it seems like the head coach has some special relations, Mr. Ghalanoui has some special relations with upstairs because all the draw happened exactly as he wished. So his wish came true. Maybe it was an early Christmas gift. But look, this was obviously the not so serious part to the question, but to the answer to the question. But in all seriousness, World Cup is challenging. That any World Cup is challenging because all the teams they come to fight for the pride, fight for the nation, fight for the people, the African teams, Europeans, Asians, everybody. But this group was it's achievable for Iran to get very, very good results. And I think they really should, because this generation now, they're at the peak. Are they at the peak from the performance point of view? I don't have all the stats and everything at the moment anymore, so I can't really say. But from the age point of view, this generation now, they need to hopefully qualify to the second round. And we need to understand, all the World Cups we went to was 32 teams. This time around, 48 teams. And with this group, it's really achievable. And I'm going to say this not because New Zealand is not a strong team, not because Egypt is not a strong team. They all are. They're good teams. But their style of football is in a way that Iran can, and I do believe must plan to perform well. Once again, it needs planning, it needs proper preparations. And also, I'm going to mention one more thing, and I do believe you guys will agree after you hear this. For me, the most important game of any World Cup is the opening game. The opening game is your World Cup. Look, we beat Morocco, we stayed in the tournament. We had a chance. 2014, we drew against Nigeria. What a great game that was as well. We still had a chance. And afterwards, we went to Belo Horizonte. We played against Argentina. Unforgettable game. If we only had VAR that game, we forgot that game. That game was one of the gods of football did not
To
form
this
in
day,
our
that's
favor.
still my favorite game of Team Melli.
Unbelievable game.
From a tactical standpoint, you don't defend as good as that against that many great players for 90
Oh my
minutes.
God, Mascherano and Messi and everyone. What a game. And that late goal from Messi, I'm going to share with you. I'm sorry, we're jumping from one topic to another topic, but in the team talk, I'm saying this for the first time. Coach Queiroz, this is right in the locker room before the game. He said to the players, he said, boys, we all know what you need to do. Everybody had their positions and the game plan was all set, trained, fantastic. He said one thing, he said, we got to be careful with this team. This team, especially with Leo, with Messi in the front of the park, they could come to us like this African snake. And I asked him, I said, which African snake? He says, there is this special snake in Africa, and that snake doesn't look lethal. It doesn't look deadly. It comes to you nice and slow. It comes. Then all of a sudden, boom, it attacks. Then obviously I shared this with the player. He said, you be careful. When they look, they're not going to attack, they will attack. When they look, the game is over. When it all seems to be in our favor, that's the moment you got to be careful. And this is exactly what happened to us with that very late goal from Messi.
Wow.
But still, it was a wonderful game.
Clip that, Samson. That was a really good one. I like that.
I'm going to come back to your question about the group. So the opening game is against New Zealand. That, to me, is the best thing that happened to Iran. Because if you play your opening game against one of the least favorites of the group, New Zealand, I actually know I know a couple of the members of the coaching staff. They actually have a decent team. New Zealand has a decent team this time around. They've been working hard. They're not where they were 5 or 10 years ago. They've come a long way. But Iran can still do it. Same with Egypt. I mean, Belgium is another case, obviously being a powerhouse European team. But I do believe this is the most favorable group that I remember Iran has ever been into. I don't like to use the word easy. Nothing's easy in the World Cups, but it's the most favorable group. And also playing two games in LA. That's huge. Because I've done a lot of logistics.
The home
planning.
game. Yeah.
Home game. And home game, and also you don't have to move. Because in Russia, our first game was in St. Petersburg. We played in St. Petersburg, we came back to Moscow. Our second game was in Kazan. We went to Kazan, we came back to Moscow. And our third game was in Saransk. We did the same. So for the team, logistically and from the recovery perspective, to stay in one city, obviously LA with a lot of fan base as well, this is, I mean, the gods of football are in favor of Iran this time.
Aryan, moving on to, I guess, next steps. I'm curious because Galanoy right now isn't the sort of most popular manager currently. I'm not saying that Carlos Queiroz will come back. That's off the cards. But if there was a new coach coming in the future, would there be would you turn down an opportunity to work back in Team Melli?
Look, I'm in a different stage of my life now, to be honest. I've tried. I've always tried to stay in top elite level sports management. When COVID happened, I came back to Australia. It was middle of COVID. And it was a huge lockdown globally. So this is an interesting part of my career. I ended up managing the equestrian team, West Australian equestrian team, which is the horse, the Olympic sports in the horsing department of Western Australia. We prepared the team for the Tokyo Olympic. We actually got a silver medal in Olympic as well from one of my riders. I've got a bit of a horsing passion as well on the side, but I put a structure in. Everywhere I go, I've tried to copy what I learned with my boss. I try to implement proper structures, a proper department, high performance department, a recovery, good medical department. That's what I've done, and that's what I still do. Would I turn down an offer to go back to? I'm not sure. It all depends on what happens and how it unfolds. But one thing for sure, football for me is it's more than a game. It's a huge part of my life, and it will always be. We'll see.
Are you still in touch with Carlos Queiroz? Do you still speak to
I
him?
am a lot. Yeah, I try to visit him at least once a year. I went to his. He just finished his thesis last year. So in Lisbon, they held. He got his doctorate, a proper doctorate. He actually studied a number of years for it. So they held a very, very beautiful ceremony for him. So I flew into Lisbon. I keep in regular contacts with him. I speak to him. I try to see him at least once or twice a year. Yeah, he's a very important part of my life.
I want to ask a couple, perhaps the fan question portion of this.
Please.
We want to consolidate some of them because we are running a little bit out of time. This is more of a quick fire type of question.
Sure. Let's go.
Several things, but I want you to answer with one word to describe each of the following, Aryan. First, easy. Favorite football club?
Manchester United.
One word to describe the following. Iran and Iranians.
Heritage, when it comes to describe both in one word, amazing heritage.
Carlos Queiroz.
Leader.
Iranian football.
Developing.
2018 World Cup.
Unforgettable.
2022 World Cup.
Bitter.
Sardar Azmoun.
Incredible talent.
If you want to expand on Osman, I don't mind that as well. I know you have a bit to say about him potentially.
Yeah, but I mean, Sardar is a great player. I have to admit, personally, I didn't want to see him return to Asia so early. I think it was too soon for him to play in. And we're just, obviously, this is a football podcast. We're just discussing in between ourselves with your wonderful listeners as well. Because he came to Australia with AC Roma last year. Preseason, they held a preseason exhibition game here. I was actually part of the game organization. I was in touch with the Premier here, and we managed to get AC Roma and AC Milan with all the stars that came to Western Australia, and Sardar came as well. And one night, we went out with myself, him, a few of the AC Roma boys, Dybala and everyone else. I think Chris Smalling was still back in AC Roma as well. I think he's not there anymore. But anyway, and he indirectly tried to tell me that I'm thinking of this transfer, and I said Sardar, because I've known Sardar since he was 16. One time I had to, because he was underage. His mom and dad went there. Coach Queiroz said, "You go and pick him up from the airport. You bring him to the very first national team camp that he came. I went personally to the airport. He had to fly in. He was 16 years. He was 16. He was still a very, very young boy. So I've known him for a long time. And I said to him, Sardar, it's a little bit too early. You still got like a few more years in Europe. You can flourish. But look, everybody's obviously they take their own decisions based on the family circumstances and the career professional circumstances. But I do wish him all the very best. But I really, deep down inside, I wanted to keep seeing him in AC Roma or Hertha Berlin or the French League or La Liga or somewhere in Europe. He's definitely a great talent.
The other player that you can say a few words on, I know we don't have much time, but a few words. Mehdi Taremi.
Mehdi Taremi, he's also a great talent. Once again, if his move to Europe was a little bit earlier, he probably would have played in the top 3 or 4 or 5 clubs in the world. He ticked all the boxes. He still does. I mean, Mehdi, to me, he looks like he's just at the very sort of beginning of his rising career in terms of Europe. But once again, the age factor in modern football, we all know that it plays a major role now. But Mehdi is a great player, who can help the team actually next year at the World Cup. He'll be very, very important, an extremely important player next year for Team Melli.
And Alireza Jahanbakhsh.
Ali Jahanbakhsh, he always had the captain feeling to him. I told him one of the first camps he came in, and I was because we're all in a similar age. I was friends with him. And I said to him in front of his dad, I said, Ali, one day you're going to be the captain. And I said, oh, thank you. They used to call me Aryan, Mr. Aryan. Oh, thank you, Aryan. It was a very young, beautiful, beautiful boy, a beautiful human. And he's really helped the national team in 3 World Cups a lot. I do believe our players, these group of players, they deserve a little bit more respect, because it's not easy playing the club life and the national team, and the majority of fans, they focus on the monetary rewards that the players get in terms of the contracts and the big money and everything. But they still have their own challenges. It's challenging. And Jahan Bakhsh is definitely a great player, another great player as well, and a great friend.
Right before Arya closes us out, another one or two word. Favorite young Iranian player emerging?
I like this Istiqlal player,
Kushki. Yeah, great player.
Kushki. He's if he gets good trainings, Sao Pinto of non-Sao Pinto as well. He's actually a good coach, the Istiqlal Portuguese coach, and if he gets the right coaching and in the right environment, he's a really good player.
Needs to move to Europe, I think. I think he would be doing a fantastic player if he moved to Europe.
Definitely, yeah, 100%.
Aryan John, I want to say a big thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
خیلی ازت متشکرم که اومدی رو پادکست ما. واقعا کار تو این 9 سال 10 سالی که تیم واقعا عالی بوده و اینکه الان هم که ما داریم یه چند دیگه میخوایم بریم جام جهانی، واقعا نمیشه مثلا اون روزایی که شما بوده تیم ملی رو بهش فکر نکنیم، چون واقعا برای تیم ملی خیلی خدمت کردید و همیشه ما ازت تشکر میکنیم از این مدت و برای این مصاحبه. So thanks a lot for coming on the podcast. Really appreciate it. Do you have any closing remarks you want to say to the fans?
I want to thank you, gentlemen, as well for the invitation. It was a pleasure speaking with you guys to relive some of those memories. It brought back some sweet moments, some challenging moments, but it was all great experiences that we shared with your audience as well. It was an absolute pleasure. I also want to say this in Persian. از شما مجدد تشکر میکنم از دعوتتون. واقعا اینو از صمیم قلب میگم. امیدوارم روزای بهتری برای کشورمون اتفاق بیفته. همه ما عاشق کشورمون هستیم، مخصوصا این جنریشنی که حالا بهش هم اشاره کردیم، دیاسپورای ایرانی‌ها، جوانای ایرانی که در سراسر دنیا، دوستای خیلی خوبی من دارم تو کشورهای مختلف، عاشقانه ایران رو دوست داریم، عاشقانه هممون این هم توانایی رو داریم، هم اون عشق رو به کشور داریم که بتونیم کمک بکنیم. امیدوارم اتفاقاتی بیفته که بتونیم کمک بیشتری بکنیم، بتونیم مردممون رو خوشحالتر از این چند ساله ببینیم. با امید روزهای بهتر. Thank you and your audience again for listening to me.
خیلی ممنون ازت. And again, Samson, Sina, appreciate you guys coming on again, and hopefully we'll speak to you soon. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Masoud Shojai. You are listening to Gol Bezan podcast.